In this video, I'm going to be going over the foreign exchange markets and covering a bunch of different currencies from the week of September 16th to the 22nd. And I will be showing you the methodology behind technical analysis and how I address certain assets and if I see any particular setups that I will be taking. Without further ado, let's get straight to the charts. Welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name is Matt Jimenez. I'm an entrepreneur who has worked with the greatest minds in finance for the last several years, and I'm here to pour into you guys everything they pour into me. And today I'm going to be going over exactly how I assess different markets by looking at their current price action to allow me to give a good forecast on where I see potential currencies trading and trending. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm starting a manual journey. What I mean by that is I'm going to be trading manually while running the algorithm in tandem just to see how well manual stacks up. Now with that being said, let's jump straight to the charts to see exactly what I'm looking at for this week and if there's any potential trades. Oh, and also I know you're probably like, Matt, where's your studio? I'm actually building a new studio for you guys, so ignore the emptiness for now. Okay, so we're going to start here on Euro USD, which is one of the most popular pairs. And what I like to do before I address any chart is try to find the overall consensus of a chart. And I use a multitude of different things to help me find the direction of where price action will be moving into the week, month, and so forth. I always do a top-down approach. What I mean by that is I start from the highest time frame to allow me a bigger bird's eye view of where things can be headed. So with that being said, I have Euro USD open on the monthly chart. So here we are, Euro USD on a monthly chart. The first thing I see here is a clear identified trend. We have a series of lower highs followed by lower lows, which is a clear indication of a downward trend. So I'm just going to go ahead and plot this trend line right here. And as you can see, we are definitely at a point of interest of where a potential trade setup can happen. Now, typically when you're trading in a downtrend, you want to find areas to go short because you want to trade with the trend. And as a side note, you could also do counter trend trading, which would be buying the bounce back to the trend line. As you can see, each area where it bounced was a clear entry for you to find a short-term long position to the overall move of a downtrend. Typically when you're counter trend trading, you want to be fast. You want to be in and out. You don't want to sit too long because you are trading against the trend, and that is just an unlikely scenario that you will be profitable. Now there's several things that I'm going to be looking at here. I'm going to be looking at the RSI to see if it's overbought or oversold and if there's any divergences at the moment. And then I will also be addressing where the moving averages are, because the moving averages are an extremely useful tool that I have found to be almost a dynamic support and resistance that allows me to find where price action could potentially be reacting. Typically whenever you see the price move into a moving average, you'll have a reaction to it. And as I go through charts, you'll see more of that. Now, if I just grab my brush tool, all of these areas right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth, are all areas of interest to go short. And as you can see, we're here again at the trend line. Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and I'm going to zoom in to see if there's any potential opportunities to find a trade on this chart. So far, I don't see anything. It's quite choppy, as you can see at the moment, and this is a monthly chart. So now I'm going to drop down. Like I said, I do a top-down approach, so I find the overall move, and then I work my way into the smaller time frames, ultimately finding my entry points into the overall consensus of where this chart is headed. Okay, so here we are on the weekly. I do kind of like this price action. One thing I don't like is all this upward pressure. It does look like this trend actually might break. As you can see, it did get respected quite nicely, and the 200 moving average also adds a bit of confluence to that. But we did close above the 200 moving average on the weekly. At best, I could see a potential short position here, which I think is a low probability setup and not something I'm actually really interested in. Now, this would be somewhat of a setup that I would take if I liked the price action on this. Again, I don't like the price action, and this is not a trade that I would deem likely to be in favor. Reason being is because even if you were to go short, you're shorting into a load of support. You have two moving averages that are pinching, showing a change in momentum in the chart, which means from down to up. That's the change in momentum here. So if you do go short, you're going to run into a bunch of turbulence on the moving averages, number one. Number two, there's tons of previous price action to the left, which price action is the only indication that we can guess on how the chart will interact at these certain levels. And price action is super important because hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people watch price action And the more people that watch it, the more validated it becomes because people actually build the support and resistance around it. So if a bunch of people see a chart going to a clear support level, the consensus is everyone's going to buy there. So people interacting is creating the price action, and that's what I look at. So when I look left and I see all this sloppy price action, there's a lot of trades, and I don't think it's smooth sailing. Typically what I like to see is a lot of room to the left. So when there's a lot of room to the left in a chart, typically that's a nice swing point where you're not going to have much turbulence. So over here, if I was to look for any type of long positions in this area, I could look left and see weeks of no price action. Even over here, this is a perfect short that is in alignment with the monthly downtrend. If I look left, there is weeks, I could keep scrolling, weeks of no price action in the way. And again, if you were to short this, look as it comes down, where does it react? Where the previous price action is. And that is with everything in trading. So keep that in mind as we move forward. This is a low probability setup, something I'm not interested in. And I will go ahead and drop one more lower to see what the daily chart looks like. So on the daily, as you can see, the moving averages are now below price, which means it's going to act as support. And again, that's something that I do not find appealing to wanting to take a trade. And the RSI over here is very neutral. It's in the middle, so it's not screaming short to me. It's not making me want to go short. Typically I want like a minimum of 4 things that go with the trade plan. Now what do I mean by that? I need as much confluence as possible. If I'm going short, I want the RSI to be oversold, possibly with a bearish divergence. I want it to be in an area of significance to go short, like at the top of a trend line, as it is right here. I want the moving averages to be above price, and I want the price action to show me some type of rejection. Typically what I look for is large wicks with small body candles. That indicates to me that there's loads of volume coming in to the next future candles that will be forming. Right here, I don't see anything that is very appealing. Let's go down to the next chart. GBP USD. Now, when you're looking at GBP USD and Euro USD, they are pretty correlated. So if you did go short on Euro USD, you wouldn't want to go long over here because then you're hedging your trade. Or if you want to do a double short, you would find GBP USD short as well. This chart here is in a clear downtrend because, like I said, it is quite correlated with Euro USD. I don't like that the moving averages are pinching, showing a possible bottom happening, maybe some upward trending motion here. Now with this chart, I don't really see any setup, nothing that interests me at the moment. Let me drop down to a weekly. There's nothing interesting going on here. We are definitely at a level of resistance. Not a significant one, but one that is definitely identified. And let's go ahead and drop a bit lower just to see what the daily is looking like. As you can see on Euro USD, the daily was shifting, and over here on GBP USD, it's already fully shifted to a nice structured uptrend. If I was to grab the trend line here, you can see a series of higher lows being formed with higher highs being formed, which indicates an uptrend. USD JPY, now this one does look a bit interesting to me. As you can see, this is a perfect trade setup. So right here we have the Euro USD showing overbought territory, then it formed a bearish divergence. If you don't know what that is, it's basically when there is a lower high formed on the RSI, meanwhile the chart price action is showing higher highs. That is a divergence, and that is a great indicator to show me that there is going to be a revert to a normal means. Now this chart is very interesting because when you're in between moving averages like this, especially the 200, typically charts will always find some type of support at the 200 area. But it is super choppy and messy, and you can see the 50 and the 100 moving average are starting to curve over and pinch, which also can be, like I said, indication of the trend flipping. There's no trade here, but I am interested to see if we can make it down to here. If we do go a bit lower, I could see the chart possibly popping back up into these moving averages and maybe making that right shoulder, which is a reversal pattern, and that will indicate that the trend will change. As you can see, this is a clear uptrend, so it only makes sense that a head and shoulders would form here to signal a reversal to give us a new trend, which would be a downtrend in favor of the yen. So you could see some type of motion like this happening, which I think is quite likely. I will be addressing price action in this area right here to see if there's any potentials to go long up into these moving averages. Typically the area of interest for me on a setup like this would be something in this area right here, which is where the right shoulder would form. Let me show you exactly how the head and shoulders I see playing out could possibly form. So right here we have the left shoulder, we have the head, and then I think we can come down just a tad bit lower into this area and then form this right shoulder. And a good rule of thumb when trading head and shoulders is on the right shoulder you want to find the peak of it, right? But how do you do that? You want to try and gauge it by looking at where the left shoulder is, because that of course will be a sign of resistance that everyone is looking at. If I was to go ahead and grab this horizontal line and plop this right here, as you can see we have a clear area of resistance. This is somewhere where I would be looking to find a potential short. I will be tracking it throughout the week to see if we could even make it up into this area. Again, this is a weekly chart. This will take some time to form. I'm going to go ahead and delete this so I can get a better view of what's going on here. So we have loads of news coming out. We have retail sales, balance trade for Japan. Looks like a lot of Japan news coming out, which could come back possibly negative, considering they did raise their rates after 10 years. While that may seem bullish and in favor of the currency, I think a lot of the move has been priced in, and this chart is heavily overextended. So another beautiful lineup here is we get some weak news. We could have a correction because this is a clear bleeding of a downtrend with no real structure, barely all dead cat bounces. I think this news could allow some of a bounce to come up into this area over here, which is where the moving averages are, ironically, and that'd be a great area to find a potential short. I will be looking at this and monitoring it closely. I'd never rush into positions. There's no reason to ever rush into a position. Let me go up to a monthly really quick. I want to see where this thing could potentially head. Okay, all right, so as you can see, the yen has been far outpacing the dollar for a long period of time, and then we had the swap here where the dollar started to do pretty well, and now we've extended quite some distance from these moving averages, which makes sense for this bit of a pullback. I do think the trend of the yen strengthening is pretty likely here, so I am expecting some good shorts in these areas to come down into these moving averages. Remember, whenever price moves heavily away from a moving average, it'll pull back into the moving average to find some support and or resistance, depending if you're trading above the moving averages or below. And another thing I want to address here is look at this divergence. I'm going to highlight it. I don't know if you guys see this, but if I was to grab this to here, there's several divergences happening. As you can see, here's a high, higher low, higher low. But on the chart, it's a higher high followed by a higher high. Now this is a clear indication again that the chart is most likely going to bleed to the downside. But I do think that there is a correction coming to where if I wanted to short this market, I could find a much better price to go short for a long-term swing here, which is amazing. I don't want to take too much time on every single chart here, so I'm going to move pretty quickly. And if you find this interesting, I'll make loads of videos to go over the psychology of the setups and why I'm taking them. Australian dollar with the US dollar. So starting on the daily here, let me go back up to the monthly just to see where we're at. Okay, no clear indication. It's coming to a bit of a wedge. As you can see, this is forming a triangle. We are below the moving averages, which is a nice sign that we're in a downtrend. But again, averages and all indicators are all lagging metrics. You need to understand price action, and understanding price action will keep you ahead of the indicators, and then the indicators will just also validate your thesis of why you're finding a certain position. As you can see, lower highs followed by lower lows, and now it's just way too choppy. This is not something I would be interested in trading. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So USD franc, we are coming into a very interesting area where we were back in 2011, and as you can see, it's been quite a floor. Price touched this area and wicked, and every time it gets kind of low, it has a reaction to this area, which shows a clear sign of support. One thing I want to mention about support is never an exact price. So when you see this line, do not think it's an exact line. It's going to touch the line and immediately move. The way that I see support is a zone, and it's helped me a ton throughout my years of trading. Now, I use the line but in my head, this is what I see. That's how I view all support and resistance. And guys, support and resistance is not just horizontal lines. Support and resistance is dynamic. You need to look at it as a trend line, whether it's up or down. You need to look at it as moving averages. You need to look at it as Fibonacci retracements. Support and resistance is more than a horizontal line. It is dynamic, meaning it takes many forms, which I just listed a few. And right now we are in this area of support. One thing I will mention about support is and resistance is the more it's tested, the more likely it is to break. So if we do break this level right now, coming into this week, which I actually think it's likely, I'm pretty bullish on the franc right now because of everything that's going on with the US dollar. The Swiss franc typically will stay quite neutral, which is very strong for a currency. So if we do break this, typically price would come down and then have a retest, confirming this area as resistance to then again trade much lower. We do have this area over here where there's loads of support. As you can see, this giant wick here, which means there's tons of buying pressure down here. So if we do trade lower, it is quite likely we would come down into this area and have a massive rejection, but that does not mean the trend to the downside is obsolete. It's just an actual natural ebb and flow of how markets move. So USD franc, potentially I think we could push a bit lower before finding an alleviation bounce. Let me go ahead and take it a bit lower and go to the weekly. As you can see, I have this RSI indicator, which is pretty cool because it automatically plots whenever it sees a divergence. Again, it's not 100% accurate, but it allows me to see one that I may have missed. Right here, you can see there's a clear divergence. The chart made a lower low, but on the RSI, it made a higher low, which is a bullish divergence, meaning buy. So right here where I'm hovering it, and you see the dotted vertical line, that is where the buy signal would have came through, telling us to go long, which again is a counter trend trade. With counter trend trades, you want to be in and out. You don't want to hold them as swings. I myself am a swing trader. I'm not here to scalp. I'm here to find longer term moves that typically take weeks to play out, and I hold them because I have a firm bias on the fundamentals that will support the technicals. They go hand in hand. So to my point of the counter trend trade, where this buy signal was, you had an amazing rip to the upside, but the overall pressure is to the downside. So you want to be able to get out of counter trend trades when you meet the proper price action, which would be a revert to the means of the downtrend, where the next higher low would be formed. Nothing I'm interested in here. I will be watching this and seeing how we react in this region to see if there is some buy pressure, because if I want to get into this chart, I would look for some type of shorts up in this region by the moving averages to give me some support and know that I'm trading with the overall thesis of the trend, which is down. All right, here we are on NZD USD. Way too choppy. I'm not even going to entertain this, but it is a downtrend, and the moving averages, when they are spaced apart, that means the momentum is very strong. But there's nothing here for me that I'm interested in. What is this? We got USD CAD. We're at a clear level of resistance, and it is looking to try and crack that ceiling. I'll also just go ahead and grab this rectangle and plot this across the top. You can see every time we come up into this region, we're getting some heavy rejection. That is a clear area of resistance. Look at these giant wicks, which show massive sell volume get triggered as soon as we come in there. What's happening here is we're forming a breakout pattern. So we're having all this upward pressure into a zone, which is this resistance zone right here. And if I was to draw this right across the top here, if I was to draw this line right at the top, pull it up a little bit, make it look normal, you could see we're failing to make new highs, but we're continuously making new lows. And the lows are continuously made to the upside. We're having higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, but there's a ceiling. With all that upward pressure, that ceiling is bound to break. So I think that for USD CAD, it's looking like we could have a break here potentially, because this resistance level has been tested since 2016. And here we are again in 2024, still holding true to this level. Let me drop down to see a bit of the price action and how we're looking in that region. So we're coming to the edge of the pinch. This is going to take a bit more time to play out if it does play out, but this is something that I will be watching and monitoring a bit. This is not anything that I would trade though until a move has happened. I don't want to be in a market where I'm just getting chopped up and down, up and down, up and down. I want swings. That's what I look for. Here we are in EG. Here is a very sloppy chart. There's no clear trend. While we do have higher lows, the trend would be to the upside, but we also are capped at this top right here. So it is a bit of a breakout pattern forming, but again, this is a monthly, and we are breaking below the moving averages, which is a bit bearish if price can continue. Let me drop a bit lower to get a better view of how we're looking. Yeah, the trend is forming a bit to the downside. As you can see, every time we come up into these moving averages, we can find a short position. This is not anything I would want to trade, but if I did want to trade this, I would probably be looking for a short position that would happen out on a weekly chart. Some type of move like this. Some type of buy pressure into this region that gives me all this resistance here and the resistance of these moving averages. But I don't see that happening soon, at least. So not anything I'm interested in. Next. Weekly. This is Aussie Canadian. Now let me go ahead and plot my trend line. We're a bit ways from the trend. I don't think that this is anything that I'm interested in at the moment. I do like that on this monthly chart we are respecting the moving averages, and we have two areas to possibly go short at the moving averages. We have the 100 and the 200 coming up, which the 200 looks kind of nice if a short was to form in that area because it aligns with the trend line as well. Let me drop down to a daily. Yeah, nothing here that I'm interested in. Yeah, even if I wanted to find a short right now, it just doesn't make sense because I'd be shorting straight into the moving averages. It's just, I'd want smooth sales. Shorting into resistance or anything like this is like trying to take a plane during a hurricane. It just doesn't make sense. All right, on to the next. Australian New Zealand dollar. This is not anything I'm interested in at all. It's just a complete chop. Look at this. Let's just plot this here. You have a clear range on the bottoms and the lows. This is of no interest. You're just playing ping pong here, and especially when you're trading ranges, you want shorts at the top of the range and you want buys at the bottom of the range. This is in the middle of the range, completely choppy. There is absolutely no interest in this chart at all. Oh, this is a beautiful setup here. Unfortunate that I was not active. Okay, so this is looking a bit bullish for the pound. I have seen some pound strength across the board. EG looked pretty strong for the pound. This is looking strong for the pound. We're breaking above significant moving averages and above this resistance right here, which we're not fully out of, but the momentum is there. As you can see, this previous candle close is pretty bullish, and then it did get some hesitation by forming this indecisive candle, but now we're opening quite green. Let me drop it down a bit to a weekly. Yeah, this is not anything I would trade either. I love seeing price action like this, series of higher lows and higher highs above moving averages. But again, we're here at this resistance that I drew off of a monthly, and as you can see, it's really struggling to make new highs. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it, but for now, no. Let's go ahead and go to a monthly on GA. And this is not anything I'm interested in. It is forming some type of breakout pattern, as you can see, this pinching effect here. But again, I'm not here to try and predict a breakout. I'm here to capitalize when the move happens. Okay, so we have Euro Franc. This is a clear downtrend. This is a clear downtrend, which potentially might be forming another bullish divergence here. This could be an area of interest. This would be a counter trend trade. As you can see, you have right here a low, and now it's forming a potential higher low, but the chart is showing opposite. I think we could have a bouncing effect, which is a counter trend trade up into these moving averages, where I would look to find some type of short to continue this move. I don't think we'll make it that high though. Let me go ahead and remove this arrow to make it clear and concise and drop down to a weekly. Let me go ahead and put this area of support. I always like putting higher time frame support levels and resistance levels to give me an alarm, a mental alarm when I'm looking at the smaller time frames to know, okay, we are at a significant area of interest, whether that be a monthly support, monthly resistance, weekly support, weekly resistance, and then I address price action when we're in that area at a smaller time frame to go ahead and find my entry. Here we're just sitting at support. This is too choppy for me, not anything I'm interested in. Let me go ahead and go to Euro and ZD monthly chart. It's a bit flat, nothing going on here. We have this clear area of resistance that has been valid since all the way back in. Drop down to a weekly to see nothing that I am really interested in. Maybe when we get into this area over here, I'll look for some type of positions. EJ. Okay. So EJ is an interesting one. I actually was looking at this last week, and I thought that there could have been a potential long playing out. Keep in mind, this long that I saw that was playing out is definitely a low probability setup, which is why I did not take it. But let me show you the mind frame behind why I saw this long. So number one, I see this gigantic monthly candle just completely plummet, and then we have a massive wick, which shows me tons of buy pressure. That's number one. And then when I go down to a weekly, I see us in between the moving averages. We're at the 100, which is good area to be potential support. And then just a few weeks ago, we had this gigantic thing react right off of it. So I was hoping for some type of reaction into this moving average. And then when I drop down to the daily, I like this candle right here, which is having a similar reaction to this candle right here with this giant wick. So I was thinking there would be a potential setup, something like this, up into the moving averages. But the better play here would be to find a short position at these moving averages. So as price continues, the moving averages will continue to form as well, which will allow me to find a better position. This was the idea that I had, and this idea was actually on multiple pairs. It was on all the yen pairs. It was the exact same setup. Luckily, I didn't take it, but I don't think it's invalid yet. I do think that we could have some type of bounce here, and that would allow for the greater position, which I'm really more interested in, is finding a short, because I think the yen is going to do a lot more strengthening in the coming years. So I would possibly look for some type of short in this area over here, because I do think the moving averages will start to form a bit over here, and as we get price action, we could address it. But again, it's way too early to say anything like that. But I am going to go ahead and plot this area here to allow me to be alert when we get into this region to see how price is reacting. There is a long setup. It'll happen here quite soon, but the better position is finding the short after the long, because the long here would be a counter trend. As you can see, this is a clear downtrend. The moving averages have even completely shifted over and prices below, and they cross. There's loads of evidence showing that this is going to be a downtrend. So I want to be alongside this downtrend, and I will be looking for potential shorts as we get into this area of interest. Again, let's look at GJ. It's going to be very similar. Almost identical. Same type of setup, guys. Same thing applies. We go down one more. Again, here we are. AJ, same thing. CAD, JPY, same thing. Franc yen is a bit different. I do think there is some type of a bounce going to happen into these moving averages where I will be looking for shorts. So, you know what? I'm going to put a zone. Yeah, something along the lines of coming into this area with those moving averages and finding some type of signal to go short. One cool thing that I also see here playing out to align with the thesis of a long, potential bullish divergence forming right there. As you can see, the chart is showing something different than the RSI is showing, which confirms the thesis. Again, you want multiple reasons to take a trade, multiple pieces of evidence to take a trade. And this is one. You have the RSI being in a bullish divergence. What happens after a impulsive move? You have a correction move. So this is an impulsive move. Well, we're going to have some type of correction move up into this area, which I think will play out in the next week or two max, where I will be looking for short opportunities. Now, I know that is a load to digest, and if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you. If you could leave me a comment if you enjoyed it, and if you want to keep up to date with me, I am actually going to be manually trading quite actively here. My style of trading is a bit laid back. I'm not looking to take positions every single day, but I am looking to find positions that will be longer term plays that you could have a lot more benefit from. It's a bit more laid back than the average day trader actively finding positions. While I can do that, they're just in and out and more lower probabilities. I like finding trades that I can hold and let them play out to not only have 5 or 10 pip gains. I'm looking for 100 pip gains. That's the difference. Found this interesting. I will be doing one every single weekend to update you for the week above, for the coming week. I funded a $30,000 account that I will just manually trade. There will be no bot interference with this, and I will document it live for you guys, and I'll set up my FX book in which you can track my performance as well. If you're interested in that, I will send it to you personally. Just leave me a comment down below. And like always, my friends, safe trading. Peace. No. Peace.